Pide is the perfect brunch alternative to pizza. It has a soft and slightly chewy dough, like a cross between Neapolitan pizza and pita bread. It has loads of stretchy and melty cheese, and is usually accompanied with a bunch of fresh and flavourful toppings. Personally, I find that the lack of a tomato sauce makes it a lot lighter than pizza, and the fact that you can go from raw flour cooked pide in under an hour makes it the perfect thing to satisfy an early morning pizza craving. I'm Obi, and today I'll show you how you can make amazing pide at home, whether you're using a home oven or a pizza oven. Let's get started. I think the most important characteristic of pide is actually its dough. For this reason, I have two recipes, one which produces a great result in a home oven and another that works brilliantly in a pizza oven. You'll have to start by making the dough, as that will need to rest for a while before you can use it. I'll be making it in a stand mixer, but you can also do this by hand. First off, we'll activate our yeast so that I can give the dough a good rise. This can be done by adding yeast to our liquid, but what liquid should you use? I found Turkish recipes using different ratios of water, milk, yogurt and even oil, so I've chosen to use 180 grams each of milk and water for a total weight of 360 grams. The additional milk makes the dough softer and helps it brown in the oven, but you can replace it all with water if you need to. The directions for the pizza oven dough are identical, but the amounts will be in the description box below. Warm your liquid slightly so that it measures between 25 to 35 degrees Celsius, as this will be the optimal temperature for the yeast to work. Now add in 5 grams or 1 teaspoon of sugar and follow that up with 4 grams of dried active yeast. Whisk this all together thoroughly and set it aside somewhere warm for about 10 minutes. When the time is up, there will be this bubbly foam on the surface of the liquid, and that's a sign that the yeast is working correctly. If there isn't a foam, leave it for 10 minutes further and check again, and if no foam appears at all, check that your yeast hasn't expired. Now in the bowl of my stand mixer, I'm adding in 500 grams of all-purpose flour, which you could also replace with bread flour. Add in 7.5 grams or 1 teaspoon of salt, and then fit your dough hook attachment for your stand mixer. Mix the salt and flour on your lowest speed for a few seconds, then make a well in the centre of your bowl. Pour all that yeasty liquid into the well, and then start the mixer once again on the lowest setting. It will take about 30 to 60 seconds to combine all of the liquid with the flour. Once that's done, you'll have an extremely sticky and shaggy dough that looks like this, and I highly recommend you don't touch it. Now turn your mixer speed up to medium and knead this bad boy for about 5 to 7 minutes. After 5 minutes of kneading, the dough is less sticky and a bit smoother, but if you fold it over itself a few times, it will get a bit rough, so it needs a couple minutes more. After 7 minutes of kneading, it now has a soft and elastic texture, and if you poke it with your finger, it bounces back, leaving very small traces of dough on your fingers. So now the dough is ready, and we need to let it rest before using it. Before we do that, we'll divide the dough into portions. Here I've got a baking sheet which I've lined with greaseproof paper. Once split into individual portions, I'll place the dough here and keep it covered so that it doesn't dry out. To get my pide to all be the same size, I've taken my ball of dough and weighed it, then divided that into 8 roughly equal pieces. You don't need to do this, but I like to go back and use my scale to get all the dough balls to be the exact same weight. Take your baking tray and sprinkle on a bunch of flour so that the dough balls don't stick to it. Now shape each portion of dough into a ball, then just keep folding the sides into the centre until it turns into a smooth ball like this. Once you've filled the whole tray with your 8 dough balls, dust them with a little flour before covering them with a tea towel. These need to rest for 30 minutes, during which the gluten in the dough will relax and you'll get loads of yeasty rise. While it's resting, you can prepare the pide toppings. There's probably a good 100 or so varieties of pide in Turkey, and most of them will come topped with melted cheese. The first cheese I'll be using is Turkish kaşar. This is a great melting cheese, and it's kind of like a blend between mozzarella and Gouda. The second cheese I have is kashkaval, which has a nice and strong flavour and also melts really well. Use whatever cheese you want, but I'd recommend something with a good amount of flavour and meltiness. In terms of meaty toppings, I'll be using some Turkish sucuk or sausages, which have a nice garlicky flavour. If you're in Europe, this brand is the one that I recommend looking for, and it also goes great with eggs. I've also got some pastırma here, which is a form of air-dried beef that is coated in a load of spices. Some of the traditional toppings include spinach, feta cheese, tomatoes, chilies and eggs. You can really top these with anything you want, so if you're vegan, try some spinach with a cheese substitute. There's also a kind of pide that's made with a spice meat mixture, and you can get the recipe for the meat from my Turkish Lahmacun video. At this point my dough balls have doubled in size, and they're all soft and puffy like this. To prepare the pide, flour your work surface, then place a ball of dough on it and press down to squeeze out any gas. Flour the dough on both sides, then roughly shape it into a circle with your hands. Now using a rolling pin, roll the dough out into an oblong oval shape that is about 2 to 3 millimeters thick. The trick to doing this is to place one hand lightly on the dough and use the other hand to roll it out to your desired length. To make your life easy, cut some greaseproof paper into rectangular pieces larger than the pide, and slice your rolled out dough onto the paper before adding any toppings. This will make transferring the pide into the oven easy, which can be pretty hard without a pizza peel. Obviously, if you have a pizza peel, use it instead, and it will make your life infinitely easier. Now add in a pile of cheese along the centre of the pide, and I would be cautious here about adding too much because it can get really messy if the pide overflows. Now add on your toppings of choice, and in this case I used a few slices of pastrma. To shape the pide, start by folding the edges of the oval over the filling and towards the centre. Make this overlap the toppings by about 1 to 2 centimeters, and you should press this into the filling slightly to prevent it from unfolding while baking. Once you've folded both sides, take either end of the oval and pinch the two sides together. This creates the corner of the pide, and you'll just work this forward slightly to give it a triangular shape. It's a lot easier than it looks, and the only thing you have to worry about is sealing the corner so no cheese leaks out. For this egg-filled one, it's usually more of a circular shape, and you might need to fold some extra corners into the dough to prevent the sides from collapsing. Finally, if you're working with something that might release water like feta cheese, try wedge the sides up with a few pieces of cheese to give it a little more height. The best way to cook the pide is on rotation, so as soon as I put one in the oven, I start rolling the next one out. Here's a few more pide that I put together. This one is a classic cheese and sucuk, but this one had way too much cheese and overflowed in the oven. Also worth noting, a floured plastic chopping board doesn't work well as a pizza peel. This one is feta cheese with tomato and chili, and it also works great with spinach, which I forgot to buy. For the egg one, you'll take it out of the oven halfway through cooking and crack on the egg before putting it back in the oven for the perfect texture. The first way you can cook these pide is in your home oven, and to do that turn the temperature as high as it can go with the grill or broiler turned on. Place 2 oven trays in the oven upside down, one sitting right on the base of the oven and one close to the grill. Having the trays upside down makes it really easy to slide the pide on and off the tray. Finally, this has been preheating for half an hour, so the oven and the trays are the perfect temperature for baking. Now using a cutting board or a cake lifter if you have one, slide the pide with its parchment paper onto the lower oven tray. This will take about 4 to 5 minutes at 240 degrees Celsius to bake on the bottom oven tray. The pide is ready to come out when it has browned slightly on the edges and the underside has firmed up and darkened. To give it a bit of extra colour and some beautiful shine, rub the edges of the pide with some butter before putting it under the grill in your oven for about 2 more minutes. The folks at Uni were very generous to send me this pizza oven so I can show you some pizza oven based recipes. It's an artful piece of engineering, and over the past few days I've fallen in love with using it. I'm planning on doing loads of recipes in it, including bread, menache and pies, so let me and Uni know if there's something in particular you want to see. They haven't paid me to say this, but this is honestly an amazing piece of kit, and I'd highly recommend one if you want to make some amazing homemade pide. If you are using a pizza oven, preheat it to about 380 degrees Celsius, then slide your pide in there using a pizza peel. This will take about 60 seconds total to cook, rotating halfway, but one problem you can face is that the sides of the pide will completely unfold. This happens because the gas in the dough rapidly expands at this heat level. To prevent the sides from unfolding all the way, just rotate it after 20 seconds, then give it 20 seconds more, then rotate again for the final 20 seconds. The great thing about the pizza oven is you can get a nice amount of leoparding, and if you're after that golden look, brush it with butter and put it back in for 5 more seconds. If you're having friends around for brunch, pide is a fun alternative to pizza. It's simpler and easy to shape, and everyone can customize it with their favourite toppings. To serve this the Turkish way, cut it into slices, and then everyone can get a piece of the different pides. Serve this while it's still hot and melted, and I can't wait to hear what toppings you come up with. Now, let's taste this. Let's try out the sucuk one first. So you got a nice brown crust underneath. Now, I've actually microwaved this to heat it up so it's gone a bit soft, but I have also tried it when it was still hard. I really like how light these pide are. The lack of a tomato sauce and the thin soft base make a really good brunch alternative to pizza. Then you add on the Turkish toppings like the sucuk and kashkaval, and it becomes impossible to resist. Let me know what your favourite pide toppings are and any combinations that you think will work great. Thank you all for watching, and a special thanks to our patrons for supporting the channel, and I'll see you all soon in the next video.